Markets are down across the board, and Palantir is struggling to stay above $10 per share. Cathie Wood just liquidated her over 35 million shares in Palantir, and the stock is showing a lot of weakness. However, the fundamental underlying business is actually showing a lot of signs of strength. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about a couple of indicators of a very positive long-term outlook for the business that I haven't seen really discussed on YouTube that much. I'm also going to break down my goals for my Palantir investment this year. But first, let's talk about some of these positive indicators. And the first one that I want to highlight is that Alex Karp, the CEO of the company, has completely stopped his insider selling. Now, the insider selling at Palantir has been one of the points that bears have continually pointed to and suggesting that it's a sign of weakness within the company if all of the executives and directors are cashing out of their stocks. But Alex Karp, the CEO, has completely stopped. And as you can see from this chart here, the last time that he made a trade in Palantir shares was at the end of November 2021, so last year. And the reason why that he was doing all of these insider sells is because he was cashing in on his stock options that were granted to him as CEO, basically as a reward for bringing the company public. But when you get those stock options and you actually exercise them, then you have to pay a massive tax bill. And for a lot of these people, if they don't have huge piles of cash sitting around just waiting to pay taxes, the only way that they can actually address that is by selling some of the shares of the stock options that they just exercised. So that's what Alex Karp was doing. He stopped it completely as of the end of November, and over the last couple of months, he has not made a single trade in Palantir shares he is holding. And in my mind, this is a very positive signal because this is what he was telling us that he would do. Well, now we're seeing it happen in real time. The CEO of the company is just holding his shares. And in fact, in the Q4 earnings report conference call that happened a couple of weeks ago, he said that the majority of his net worth is actually tied up in Palantir in these shares. And it was never a doubt in my mind that Alex Karp had faith in his company, but this should be a good way to silence the bears that have said that since he's doing all these insider sells, then maybe it means that he doesn't actually have faith in the future of the company, that he's cashing out, and that investors should be wary as well. Well, maybe we can put that to rest for now. Okay, next I want to talk about what analysts believe the fair value of the company should be. And this chart here is interesting. I'll zoom in a little bit so that you can have a better look. But basically, the red line is showing what the analyst consensus fair value for the company should be, and the black line is showing where the stock price of the company actually is. And as you can see, there's a pretty significant delta that's opened up between what the majority of people think the fair value of the company should be today and where, of course, it's actually trading. Now, these prices were at the last close, and as of the opening of the markets today, Palantir has actually dropped another couple of points. So if anything, that gap has opened up a little bit wider. And why I think this is interesting is because it's showing a divergence between what the company is actually worth today on the open market and what the analysts that are actually paid and have their full-time jobs to analyze stocks, including Palantir, think the company should be worth. And this is by no means a guaranteed thing, but it's basically showing that over the past couple of months, with this gap opening up, it could be a major buying opportunity. And I've been taking advantage of that for sure and bringing my cost basis down. Now, related to that is this interesting note from a senior analyst at Morningstar named Mark Cash, who has some interesting points about Palantir in relation to the Q4 earnings report that came out a couple of weeks and the price action that's followed since. The headline is that Palantir shares have been crushed after the Q4 results, which is creating a strong buying opportunity. And this analyst maintains that the fair value is around $31 per share. But the key point here is he's saying that Palantir is being punished for missing its earning expectations, even though their revenue exceeded the target, and that there's been heightened expectations for what this company should be doing. And this is potentially creating a buying opportunity in the short term for people that have high conviction in this company for several years. As this analyst is saying, we think the sell-off is near-term reactionary and is missing the long-term vision of Palantir becoming an essential component of data operations for commercial and government entities. And this is basically what I've been saying for months now on the channel, that a lot of people misunderstand the company fundamentally and misunderstand what its potential value could be, and that all of this short-term price action doesn't mean much because the long-term growth prospects of the actual company, not the stock, but the company, are incredibly strong and continue to grow. And every couple of weeks, we're seeing new announcements of major, massive new contracts. Last week, there was a couple with the NHS and with Jacobs, and it's just going to continue to ramp up. And this leads me to the next point, which is the snowball effect or the foot in the door effect. And there's two ways that this is happening: at an industry level and then at an individual organization or company level. So at the industry level, as Palantir goes out and branches out and finds new sectors and new industries that they can engage in, if they can sign up a couple major clients clients within that sector and prove their value by improving the efficiency of the organizations with their integrated data analytics software, then of course that could put pressure on the other companies or other organizations in the sector to actually look at adopting Palantir as well or risk falling behind. And then at the institutional level, Palantir is using its foot in the door approach, essentially to give a free trial or to do a limited basis within a single department in an organization. And then once they're in and they're proving their value, then they actually manage to spread throughout the entire organization. And we've seen this happen before with a number of different clients, the most notable one being the US government. According to that same Morningstar analyst, Mark Cash, he says, after winning accounts, we believe the company can proliferate its software through organizations as firms look to extract insights by further stitching disparate data sources together. Another positive indicator relates to the fact that Palantir did miss those earnings per share targets for Q4. But the fact of the matter is that they are projecting a steady increase in gross profitability and in operating profitability. And of course, they've hired up a massive number of new employees, including new salespeople, and they're continuing to do that over the next 12 months or so, which is going to have an impact on the operating costs, especially in the beginning, before all those new salespeople and new employees actually start generating value for the company. As they get trained, of course, they're not going to be generating much value, but once they've matured into their roles and they start bringing in new clients or developing new products, then the value is going to accrue. But until that happens, there could be a slight near-term negative impact on the margins of the company. But in the long term, we're seeing steady positive trends, and this is confirmed by a number of analysts. And the last positive indicator that I want to talk about is a little bit of a vanity metric. It's not exactly related to the fundamentals of the company, but I think it's quite interesting and quite telling. Now, I found this on the Palantir subreddit, where people were looking at what the Google search trends were for Palantir Foundry, the software, or PLTR, the ticker symbol. And here is the 5-year chart of Google searches for the term Palantir Foundry. And you can see that there is a clear and steady uptrend. And if we look at the breakdown by region of where these searches are occurring, you can see that it's all over the world. It's not localized to, for instance, the United States. Now, the reason why I think this is actually pretty bullish, as people are discussing on Reddit, is that the average investor isn't necessarily searching Palantir Foundry. They'd be searching for Palantir stock or PLTR, whereas people that might actually be using the software or thinking about using the software or are interested in the actual product that Palantir is selling would be using this search term. And if we compare this to searches for PLTR, which of course is the actual stock, you can see that it's a different story. Basically nothing up until the company went public, of course. And what with the mania that happened at the beginning of 2021 and the rise of Wall Street bets, you can see that searches for PLTR, this stock, peaked at February 14th to February 20th. And since then has dropped off pretty precipitously, and it's been on a steady downward trend even over the last couple of months. And the reason why I think combined this is a pretty bullish indicator is because searches for the product that the company is selling are going up, meaning that there's more and more interest in it over time, whereas Palantir as a meme stock is actually going down, and there's less and less interest in it in terms of a short-term speculative play, because we've basically weeded out probably all of the people that were only in Palantir for a quick buck because they thought it was going to moon ASAP. Versus now we're developing a more mature community of investors on the one hand, but also of course prospective clients and clients on the other hand. Okay, finally, I want to briefly talk about my goals for my Palantir investment in 2022. Now, this might not be quite what you expected, but I have no goals or expectations whatsoever related to the price of the stock. My goals related to this company and my investment in it are exclusively related to the number of shares that I can accumulate. And I think especially in bear markets, this is really a good way to think about investing in a company, because I'm not worried at all about the short-term price action. I'm thinking exclusively long-term with this company. This is an investment, it's not speculation. And so the lower the price is today, actually, it's even better for someone like me that's thinking in terms of how many shares can I accumulate, because it just makes it easier and easier for me to reach my goals. Now, in my case, my goals throughout most of 2021 was to reach 1,000 shares of Palantir. And in the past month or so, I actually reached that goal and then surpassed it by a pretty significant margin. And as of the time of this recording, I currently hold 1,307 shares of the company. And now that I'm here, I'm thinking, why stop? Especially when the prices remain so low that every time I make an additional purchase, it lowers my overall cost basis. So I'm adjusting my goals for 2022 to try and hit 2,000 shares of the company by the end of this year. Now, Whether or not I actually hit that goal is going to depend on how much money I have to put into this, and of course I have to pay my bills, and I have other investments that I'm sinking money into. And then also it's going to depend on whether or not the price of the stock stays where it is now or even potentially goes lower, because if that happens, it's going to be much easier for me to hit my goal. And then beyond that, the idea is to just hold, at least to 2030 or beyond. And that is the difference between investing or speculating. Anyways, what are your goals for your investments with this company? Let me know. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.